The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about former President Trump being indicted yet again, this time on charges related to January 6th. Now, this is the third indictment against Trump, and there could be number 4 coming up right after this. But before we get into the most recent case and the possible pending case, let's go back a little bit to talk about what he's been charged with so far. Now, the very first case was out there in Manhattan. All right. This was the Stormy Daniels hush money case. Remember that? And right when he got charged with that, I already knew this is going to be the first of many, because all it took was that one person, that one ambitious DA, Alvin Bragg, out there in Manhattan to charge the former president with something. It didn't matter what, just something to break the precedent. Now we're going to have a domino effect. Now we're going to have a snowball effect. All right. So the first thing, Stormy Daniels, he's been charged with that. And then we have the classified documents case. Okay. And they are, when I say reaching, they're reaching. They're trying to charge the janitor for some stuff in this case. I'm talking, it's really ridiculous, especially when we saw your man Joe Biden with documents in his garage right next to the Corvette. Okay. We saw all that going on, but I digress. And then you see right there talking about the janitor. They want to call him the Mar-a-Lago manager, head of maintenance. What does maintenance mean? Janitor. I've done that kind of work before. I know what it means when they say maintenance or utility. I've done it. Anyway, I digress. Now, here is a little bit of a blurb about the potential case coming out of Georgia, because they're trying to say that Trump was trying to subvert the election down there, talking about, you know, the Fulton County situation, the votes didn't get counted, all this and that and the third. So they may charge him down there. You have yet another ambitious district attorney by the name of Fani Willis, who is behind the whole Young Thug trial, which is a different story. I'll talk about that at a different time. Anyway, she might want to charge Trump too. So that could be the fourth case coming up. Now, we're going to get into what Mike Pence said. This was pretty interesting. And I know that when I give my opinion about what Mike Pence said, I may lose some people, but it's okay. It's totally fine. Let's go back to what's happening right now. The January 6th case he has been charged with, okay? This is on New York Times, and this is like a compilation of different stories, but you see the subhead. Look at the subheadline. You see the headline, J6, fueled by lies from Trump, of course, special counsel. But the subhead says, former President Donald Trump was charged with 4 counts in connection with his efforts to subvert the will of voters in 2020. Quote, despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power. Okay, according to the prosecutors. Now, let's scroll down a little bit, and we're going to see what the actual charges are. And here we go. So there is, I guess, the entire indictment right here. If you guys want to read that for yourself, I will link to it in the description. But here are the 4 charges. 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. The charge against Mr. Trump details the various methods he and co-conspirators used to try and overturn the results of the 2020 election. 2 counts related to the efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings. Mr. Trump faces 2 charges involving the vote certification proceedings at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, one of obstructing that process and one of conspiring to do so. Now, I'm not really sure how he's going to be charged with this on January 6, 2021. I'm not quite sure that Stop the Steal rally was necessarily that, but whatever. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think that's appropriate in just one moment. But the last count of conspiracy to violate civil rights related to Mr. Trump's attempts to reverse election results in states with close elections in 2020. All right. And again, I will link to this entire article, the indictment, everything from New York Times in the description box. If you're on IG, visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. Now, let's get into Pence. But first, one of the main things that Pence was talking about and kind of defending Trump here is that Trump got bad advice from his lawyers. To be clear, Trump's lawyers are telling him, hey, you know what? Mike Pence might be able to intervene here and stop the proceedings. And then we could, use that and maybe there's a different outcome. You get different votes to come in. They were just trying to throw whatever they could at the ball to see if it stuck. But Mike Pence didn't play along. Now, some are saying that Mike Pence should have done something. Some say that Mike Pence could not really do anything, and the lawyers gave him bad advice. And I'm even seeing right now from Trump's own team, they're trying to say that he got advice from the lawyers and he acted on that, and it wasn't him trying to, quote unquote, steal the election, all right? Because if you go to your lawyers, these are the professionals, these are the legal minds, and they say, hey, you have this ability to do X, Y, and Z, and that could help you, and you follow that advice. Are you at fault for that legally? I'm not really sure if you are. If you're literally following your lawyer's advice and they give you bad advice, can you go to jail for that? I don't know. But before I go any further, let's go ahead and get into it. And again, I will link to this full thing, if I can find more, in the description box below. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website.
January 6th was a tragic day. And I've spoken and written about it extensively. I have nothing to hide. By God's grace, I believe we did our duty that day. Fulfilled the oath that I'd taken to the Constitution and to the American people. And the Constitution is quite clear about the role of the Vice President in the counting of electoral votes. It essentially says the Vice President presides over a joint session of Congress where the electoral votes that are certified by the states shall be opened and shall be counted. And irrespective of the indictment, I want the American people to know that I had no right to overturn the election.
Now, what he's saying right here is that his duty as a vice president is a ceremonial one, okay? Because the votes are already casted. All you got to do is just perform a ceremonial duty. Now, what the lawyers are trying to say, and then Trump following the lawyers' advice, they were trying to say that Pence could interfere with this process and stop the counting from happening. If that's wrong, y'all please let me know in the comments, but let's continue.
And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution, and I always will. I mean, I really do believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again. I've been very forthright about this issue, and I'll continue to be.
Now, I don't know about that part, because I think Mike Pence was saying that he may have gotten bad advice from the lawyers, speaking about Donald Trump. So if Trump got bad advice from the lawyers and he acted on that advice, was he trying to get you to put him above the Constitution, or did he think that he was doing a thing that was constitutional? You see what I'm saying? So I'm not quite sure about that part.
Now, with regard to the substance of the indictment, I've been very clear. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. I had hoped that this issue and the judgment of the president's actions that day would be left to the American people. But now it's been brought in a criminal indictment, and I can't assess whether or not the government has the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what they assert in the indictment. And the president's entitled to a presumption of innocence. But for my part, I want people to know that I had no right to overturn the election. And that what the president maintained that day, and frankly has said over and over again over the last 2.5 years, is completely false. And it's contrary to what our Constitution and the laws of this country provide. You know, I'm a student of American history. And the first time I heard in early December somebody suggest that as vice president I might be able to decide which votes to reject and which to accept, I knew that it was false.
I think he's right about that. I think he's right. And I think, again, you got the lawyers that were stretching. They were stretching, just trying to find a way to make it happen. And ultimately what they were suggesting was not possible. I've never seen it happen before. If you guys know anything different, y'all please let me know. But I don't think that he was able to do what the lawyers wanted him to do. And because Trump listened to the lawyers, he was wanting the same thing, but I don't think it was possible. And I would love to see Trump and Mike Pence debate. Now, if Pence can get enough support to be in the debate, that's a different story for a different day. But regardless of what, I would like to see them debate on stage to hammer this issue out that he's having, because Trump will say a thing over there, Pence says things over here. Let's have them come together and talk about it publicly so we could just put it to rest. And whoever the audience thinks wins the debate, we'll just have that be that and move on, rather than all this back and forth between mutual parties or whatever.
Our founders had just won a war against a king. And the last thing they would have done was vest unilateral authority in any one person to decide who would be the next president. I dismissed it out of hand, but sadly, the president was surrounded by a group of crackpot lawyers that kept telling him what his itching ears wanted to hear. And while I made my case to him of what I understood my oath of the Constitution to require, the president ultimately, continued to demand that I choose him over the Constitution. And so in this moment, irrespective of how this case plays out, I want the American people to know that I believe with all my heart that by God's grace, I did my duty that day.
Okay, so there you have it, Mike Pence. I will link to the rest of this and the full thing without my commentary in the description. But that's pretty much it. We have not one, not two, but 3 indictments of President Donald Trump. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, you could think whatever you want to think. You can agree with Pence. You could disagree with Pence. It doesn't really matter. I think that we all know these charges are ridiculous. They're trumped up at best, no pun intended, because they don't want him to become president again. They want these things to drain him of resources, to take time away from him, because if you're going to court for all these indictments, and again, number 4 might be right around the corner. The first was Stormy Daniels, then classified documents, now January 6th. Then the next one could be the Fulton County election in 2020. You got all these things going on at once. It's hard to run a campaign like that. It's hard to be doing Trump rallies like that when you got to be in court for 4 different open cases on like 70-something charges. Is very hard. So I think that's what's going on here. And the reason why I know that as I close is because there are plenty of other people in politics who are not as high as a president that could have been brought up on charges, but were not. Namely, Hillary Clinton was never a president, never a vice president, but did things that Trump is being accused of, and there's no nothing. Okay, classified documents, you got the email server in your house. More charges for that, no charges for that. Talking about interfering with the election, denying the election results. Who did that? Hillary Clinton. I won, he lost. All of that type of stuff. But it's weird how people get treated. We know what's going on. It's a dog and pony show at best. And as I said from the very beginning, it is getting very old. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about what's going on here with all these indictments against Trump? Is it a way to try to keep him out of the 2024 presidential election race? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. Dog and pony show at best. Double standards at best. And I'm pretty much sick of it. And this is the exact reason why Trump continues to gain so much momentum with each time he gets charged with a thing, because people know that it's nonsense. Even if you're not necessarily a Trump supporter or a Trump fan, or you're not political, you got to see what's going on here. And like, really, they're getting them for that? Well, what about that person and that person? Why didn't they get them? You got an open investigation against Joe Biden. Will it ever get closed? Probably not anytime soon. Probably not until he's long gone from office, and he might be long gone from planet Earth. Same thing with Hunter Biden. Okay, how you gonna smoke crack and have a illegal pistol and don't go to jail? Almost get a plea deal and avoid all jail time. Might have a whole record expungement. You try to have that as a regular normie. Try getting a gun and lying on your background check. You could have any kind of thing you could have a parking ticket unpaid in your background. If you lied on that, you might get sent to the penitentiary making big rocks or the little rocks. Unlike Joe, unlike Hunter, unlike Hillary, unlike the people, the protected people, you can't do what they do. and neither can President Trump, obviously. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.